Good evening and welcome to the February 4th regular scheduled school board meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Do we have a pledger?
Hi, I would like to introduce you to Adeline.
Hi.
Adeline is our BES Spelling Bee winner, and she has impressed us all with her journey. So it began a little while back in November. All students in grades 1 through 4 received a study packet to prepare for their classroom spelling bee, which was held kind of the week before Christmas. Perfect timing. All 23 classrooms held their own spelling bee, and each ended with a classroom champion. Clearly, Adeline took that title from Mrs. Haddock's 3rd grade class. Those winners were then given a study packet over the holiday break to begin to prepare for the school-wide spelling bee, which took place on January 23rd. So we had 23 classroom spelling bee winners competed in what we would call a very tight race. It was finally whittled down to 3 finalists. So Adeline and then 2 other students. So there were 2 3rd graders and 1 4th grader. And if you've ever been part of a spelling bee, you kind of have to go round for round. And Adeline became the champion by spelling, do you remember the word?
Council.
By spelling the word council correctly. And she'll now compete complete a qualifying test through the Scripps program in order to move to the state, New Hampshire State Bee. And the top 25 spellers on the exam will compete in Concord in March. So we are super proud of Adeline, but we also want to take this opportunity to wish you the best of luck, because I know that you're currently studying for that. We just talked about this the other day. But I thought that Adeline would be a great representation of what's happening at BES, and she can lead us in the pledge and then take any questions.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
She's an expert pledge sayer.
Anyone have any questions for her?
Was it council with what? How did you spell it? There's 2 different ways.
That was my question.
COUNCIL. Council.
You remembered it. Good job.
Well, congratulations. We're very proud of you and wish you the best of luck. And hopefully we'll see you at the state competition and maybe beyond.
No, congratulations.
We have a little something for you, and it's little. You spell supercalifragilistic.
Right here, yeah.
I think that was the clearest I've ever heard one of our pledges.
I agree.
I know.
Absolutely.
Good job.
Thanks.
You're all done.
Now run, be free. You're going to do your
Like, Billy wanted to be here in the first place. I'll say it to Lucy. All right. Approval of minutes.
Can we amend the agenda first to add
Oh,
Mr.
sorry. Yes, I skipped number 3.
Boardman's principal report, perhaps after correspondence? Way down there? I mean, he's going to stay anyway. Way down there. I'm doing all the talking prior, so I figured you could go when I was done.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Rick.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So sorry. Now, approval of the minutes from the public meeting from January 7th, non-public January 7th, and the public 7th budget hearing. Wow, 3 meetings in one day. How exciting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Look how quickly we got to you.
Ooh, Lucy.
Welcome back.
Thank you. All right. So
I'm just gonna go through things chronologically order this time because after January hits, nobody really wants to do anything. It's kind of like the Monday of the month, so it's kind of slow right now. But we met December 3rd last time, I think, so early December. Soon after we met, our teacher, Miss Moynihan, who's an English teacher and the head of the theater department, took our theater group to New England College to watch the NECT Theater Company rendition of Booing Booing or Boeing Boeing, either way. A former CBNA alum actually played the lead and gave our department a tour of the school and also answered questions about having a theater major. They also got to discuss with the cast and crew the difference between educational theater and professional theater. I talked about this last time, but our clubs, SALT and NHS, which is our student athletic leadership team, and our NHS partnered to donate food for End 60 Hours of Hunger. They actually donated those goods in mid-December. Two of our volleyball members made onto the All-State Honorable Mention list. One of them is a Barrington kid, Haley Camo. She was a senior libero and defense specialist. Our CBNA FFA is a very involved club, and I haven't mentioned a lot of what they do, but in more recent news, they had their fall leadership conference or event and exchanged a share box with cash and agricultural education. Several of our clubs dedicated one of our school mornings to engage with 8th graders at the Nottingham School about CBNA, and if upcoming students wanted to know what they could get involved in. We also had our Winter Arts Festival, so showcasing choir, band, jazz, visual arts, theater. One of my sculptures was on there. Very cool. It was also it's also fun to see how talented your peers are, because it's a 3-hour-long thing of just how talented people are. It's a very cool event. In late December, Miss Gelzer's Core 3 students put together 3D printed machines, parts from the 3D printed machine, which is possible because of experimental robotics. They made a donation so we could do that. National English Honor Society hosted their 3rd annual knitting party. So after school, they supply the knitting needles and the yarn, and people, you don't have to be knowledgeable about it. You get taught, or you can just bring a project you're already working on, and they supply tea and food. It's just a very fun time. National English Honor Society also made Christmas ornaments and cards for United Away. Our food and nutrition's one class made gingerbread houses. Some of the photos of these are pretty intricate. It was very fun. They made the paths and everything for it. Our school magazine got mailed out. It's our Fall 2024 Visions. I don't know if I have mine yet, but I got the one from last year, and it's very well done. It looks really professional, and it's very fun to look back on past things that we've done. Our HOSA, so our Future Health Professional Club, organized a blood drive at the end of December at the Nottingham School. Concord Hospital donated a lot of frames, which gets integrated into our art collection to be used for future art projects. It was a lot of frames. It filled up the back of a car. There's another photo of that on our Instagram. Last Saturday was our 5th annual VEX robotics tournament. It's all day. We had around 50 robotics teams. Our teachers, Mr. and Miss Gelzer, host it. And a bunch of NHS students and a bunch of other volunteers help sure makes everything run smoothly. So me and a bunch of my friends were there for 14 hours, making sure it was set up, making sure teams got to their fields on time, making sure people got food, making sure it was cleaned up. So we were helping janitors after. It's a whole day thing. It was also really fun because it's just very cool to see the robots and see how those tournaments work. This is more senior news, but U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen puts forward nominations for students from New Hampshire to join the U.S. service academies. Paige Murdo, a senior in my grade, received a nomination for the U.S. Naval Academy. In mid-January, so a few weeks ago, Mr. Rick Anthony, who is a Pittsfield middle high school teacher, shared his son's story to promote driver safety to seniors. He gave us the flashers. You can put them back of your car in case of an emergency so people behind you know where you are. And his students also made a video about demonstrating their usefulness and like why we should have them in car safety. 23 works of art by CBNA students received recognition in the 2025 Scholastic Art Awards of New Hampshire competition. These have been exhibited at Pinkerton Academy since like January 21st, and awards are be giving this Sunday, which I'm going to because my best friend got a gold key from this, which is very exciting. Our science teacher, one of our science teachers, Ms. Gelzer, was chosen by the White House to receive a presidential award for excellence in mathematics and science teaching. Awardees receive like a certificate signed by the president and like a $10,000 award. So it's extremely exciting and it's very cool. On February 7th and February 11th, our pep band is allowing 7th and 8th graders in the area who are band members to sit in and play alongside our pep band. Especially if they're like upcoming CBNA students to like see what our band is like and like meet our band teacher, Mr. Ludwig. End of January, we had like a 4-day week and it was Teacher Spirit Week. So on Tuesday, it was Monochromatic Day. And then Wednesday, we had Holiday Day. So we had people dressed as Santa and people in New Year's Eve stuff. So at the end of lunch, to signal that we could leave, they did a countdown like it was New Year's Eve. We had Character Day, so this was like by department. Our language department was dressed up as the Wiggles. Our science was Men in Black. I think our history department was Judges. And then Friday was Anything But a Cup. So people had piñatas and traffic cones and vases and just a bunch of random stuff. And then more future news, we have a Poetry Out Loud every year. So the Poetry Out Loud website's a bunch of poems. And that actually got moved to Monday, so I'll be going to that because a bunch of my friends are going to be reciting their own poems. And that's kind of all the news I have on the school. On like senior news, we've obviously gotten over a lot of college deadlines. So from January 1st to like January 15th was just applying to colleges and financial aid and scholarships and all those things. So most things by this point are kind of like tucked away and done, which is exciting but also terrifying. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with all that. Any questions for me?
Have you heard from any schools?
I've heard from like New England College and Keene State and Colby Sawyer and UNH. I've gotten to because it's Apply New Hampshire Day. So you do that in November and they get back to you by December and you're like, okay, cool. Because none of them are like, they don't have like heavy departments of like what I want to do specifically, but they're still like decent schools. So I've gotten into those, which is like a nice like, it's peace of mind at this point, honestly, of like knowing you can get into places. But yeah, I've gotten some, but hopefully by, I think next meeting is in April, I'll know a lot more of my acceptances by that point. Yeah.
I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
As always, very thorough and well
I thought you said nothing happened.
Less happened.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
All right, public comment? Okay, anyone online? I don't see anything. All right, there is another opportunity later in the meeting if anyone chooses. Class of 2029.
I know.
Joyce update.
I know. So I want to feel really old.
Yeah. So I put that on there because if we, in fact, needed an Oyster River lottery, tonight would have been the night. We did not need one, but I thought it would just take a second to let you know where our numbers sit currently. We do have 50 students with completed packets on the Oyster River list. We had 55 spots available this year, so no need for people to panic at this point, a little wiggle room there. And as we know, those 50 people, we probably won't end up with 50 because that's just because of the lottery to hold their space. So right now, 22 students have confirmed their choice as Dover High School and 6 have confirmed for Co-Brown. So clearly that's not our entire 8th grade class. There are some that are just undecided at this point.
Can you repeat the Co-Brown number?
6.
Oh, 6. Okay.
Yep,
Thank
50,
you.
22, and 6. So that's my update there. I know there are some like computer deposits and different things that are coming up pretty quickly. We tend to have a much more solid number in March as to what students are doing. So the counselors are on top of it, and residency has been proven, and we are trucking along.
Okay.
And speaking of high school choices and updates, it is time to bring forward our memorandum of understanding for Co-Brown. I do have a suggestion. I know in years past, sometimes we've done one-year agreements, sometimes we've done two-year agreements. When I went back and looked at our the cycle, given how busy this fall was with transportation contracts and tuition agreements, et cetera, I went back and looked at that 10-year cycle that I put together. And if we wanted to consider a 2-year MOU with Co-Brown, that would put us to 2027, and we don't have anything else due that year. So that would be a great year if we wanted to get a couple people together. We haven't really engaged in a more in-depth conversation with Co-Brown about our agreement in a long time, so I had suggested that to Headmaster, and we know he's always open and willing to talk about longer agreements, so just wanted to propose a 2-year this year as opposed to a 1.
Has it always just been year by year?
There's, I looked back with Vicki, and there's been times where we've done 2 years. Not recently. We've just kind of updated the current contract each year without any changes other than dates, which is why I thought it also a good idea to just maybe bring a small group together and look at it in more depth in 2027. Especially since we just approved our other 2 high schools for longer term contracts as well. And the community's been pretty.
Those chickens, though, they have not hatched.
True, they have not. Those chickens have not hatched, but the community has been very supportive regarding the high school choice option. So we are hopeful that those chickens will hatch in March, and our high schools will be. Those agreements will be approved. I do have a clean one if we want to get that signed and ready to go this evening for me to send back to Co-Brown.
Do we need a motion for that? I'd make a motion that we enter a 2-year agreement with Co-Brown Academy.
Second?
Any other discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to add that I think, and this is a discussion clearly for the group to have, but I just want it on record, I do think it would be prudent of us to consider not just 1 year at a time. I feel like that might be a lot of work for every year, but that's for the committee to review, so thank you.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. If you don't mind, I'll keep talking while you sign, if that's okay with everybody. So I'm going to move along while the agreement's coming down for signature. We had a preliminary, just sort of organizational meeting, informational meeting yesterday for the folks on staff who would be considered to support us in our endeavors around a behavioral task force, primarily the K-2 population. We're seeing increased behaviors across pretty much all grade levels, but certainly our youngest learners are struggling. So we're hoping to get a couple board representatives forward to have that discussion. I know that Garth is not here tonight, had mentioned he was interested. So I don't know if there are others, 1 member, 2 members, and if we have days of the week and times that are preferable for folks. But we can figure out the logistics later, just more so.
We've only talked about 2 people, and I'm not presently sitting on any of the other committees, so I'd like to be on that one.
Excellent.
And I think that your background,
Yeah, that's perfect.
very useful and helpful. And
Agreed. We want your input.
don't sell yourself short, Maura.
I think I have something to say.
Yes.
I'd be of the opinion that we leave the second spot open till Garth can decide yes or no whether
Oh, he
he's
definitely wants to
interested.
be on.
Yeah.
I will pencil
works
him
for
in,
me.
though,
That works
and
for
then
me.
I will
That was
confirm
very
with
nice,
him.
though. You never want to sign anybody up for something if they aren't there.
He chose not to be here tonight. We can sign him up for everything.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what he gets for coming.
What else do we want to put on his docket?
Every single committee.
So I will then just move forward with proposing a time frame. I started to work on some focus questions. I think we'll have to be pretty clear on what we are hoping for outcomes, because we know that, situations like these we can sit in a room and talk about them, endlessly, and admire our frustrations and problems and concerns, and that's not what we want. We want some clear outcomes. So I'll get that going after tonight. All right, so superintendent goals and stay interview outcomes. This is a lot, which is why I sent it to you all ahead of time. It is part of the public packet as well, so I'll hit some highlights and then we can go from there.
That was very interesting, reading that.
The stay interviews. It was a great process. So I'll save that to the tail end of this readout. But I really appreciated people's time and transparency, and just it was fabulous. So as far as goals, Connor and I have continued to meet monthly. Those conversations, I learn something every time we meet, because obviously I don't know the town side of things, so it's always pretty fascinating for me. We continue to have really productive and positive conversations. He has really been supportive in helping me with the new road names so that we can really track the enrollment at BES. So that was wonderful. We've made some updates. I'm going to jump around a little bit just because it makes sense in my head. Made some updates with the bidding policy. We've talked about some other areas of collaboration. It's a moving target. It's a little challenging, like with copiers. I didn't know that the town owned theirs. We lease ours, and so there's just these little differences that make that difficult to bring them together. But I think the important part is we continue to find areas for discussion, and if it works out, great, and if it doesn't, we try again next time. So that has been good. I think one of our biggest accomplishments out of the collaborative meeting has been the voter guide. So we did get that out, and Bridget Connolly helped me kind of pull that together with some process and language, and so that was good. And then the more times you sort of look at your warrants and compile that information, you find little errors here and there, because there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen, so it was good to go over that one more time. Let's see. Health insurance, we'll continue that conversation into the fall, given that we're looking at it for paraprofessional contract is due, the teacher agreement, we'll continue to look at health insurance. We're still waiting for one of the comparatives to come back, because one did 1 year and one did another. So we still have time to continue on that conversation. In the area of curriculum and instruction, I think Rich will talk a little bit about this when he does his report. 2 areas that I'm pretty excited about right now. This time of year, like Lucy was saying, right, it's like the humdrum of winter, and you have to find places to celebrate and re-energize yourself. We're doing a lot of work on Portrait of a Learner right now. It's easy to do good initial work and then sometimes you lose steam, so I'm glad that we're managing to hang on to the momentum there. The state of New Hampshire has used Cartoon and Ed to do a Portrait of a Learner video, and through the School Administrators Association, they've offered it to districts at an unbelievable discounted rate to then put the Barrington face on it. So we're working now, getting parent permission for students to read the script, so they won't be in the video, but their voices, and then put our logo and pictures of our schools in town, and so that I'm excited for that. So that'll be a nice website focal point, which will be great. Science of reading. Given that we needed to put a pause on the purchase of a ELA curriculum, we really wanted to take a step back and look at, where do kids need additional support, ensuring that our staff is on the same playing field with their knowledge of reading. It has been really fascinating to have those conversations with teams, and we have a lot of interns that come to Barrington, and our universities are kind of failing our educators and have for years. even current graduates or soon-to-be graduates are saying, I'm really not explicitly taught how to teach children how to read. So it's interesting. So we are taking on that work. There's many of us who have large backgrounds in reading and understand the pillars of reading and the science of reading. So we're meeting with teams and providing that support and instruction now over the course of 5 weeks leading up to the PD day, where they will then take their mid-year data, apply that new knowledge base, and talk about how they would group their kids and the types of activities they would do to fill those gaps. So I think people are feeling a little invigorated and more focused and energized around that work. So that feels really good. As far as walkthroughs and our new evaluation process, certainly it has resulted in more visibility. With any new software program, you have to work out the kinks, right? So it's like how many walkthroughs, how many formal observations how many summatives, everybody's on a different track of recertification. So the nice thing is as the administrative team works with it, we can make those adjustments on the software end of things and make it as user-friendly with the goal of being, watching student instruction, teacher lessons as often as possible. And then how that folds into the tiered system of instruction. So that's sort of our midwinter work right now, is looking at reading, walkthroughs, and how we can support students that aren't where they need to be. Let's see. Well, policy committee keeps trugging along. We are still working through the NHSBA updates. There's a considerable packet coming forward this evening. The next chunk that I think will come forward will be as a result of the Ed 306 changes. So those haven't dropped yet. I haven't seen them. We'll see. I'm also attending a webinar tomorrow just to make sure I'm as up to speed as I need to be in this role on the Title IX changes. So as promised, with a shift in administration at the federal level, we are already starting to see changes down at the state and local levels. So we'll see how it plays out. Some of the changes are making people a little uncomfortable and nervous, but as we learn what policy is, our job is to comply with policy, and our other job is to support students. So we'll see how those intersect and make recommendations as we go forward. I think other than my forgetting to put Rich on the schedule tonight, our new routine for reporting out has resulted in more consistent building level communication, more in-depth communication as far as like attendance and things like that. And then also having our meetings themselves be a little more targeted. So that is going well in my opinion. And then I'm going to jump into stay interviews. I'm just doing a little scan through to see if there's anything else. Before I jump into stay interviews, I don't know if anybody's looked at the website lately, but it is just so much better in so many ways, not only from an ADA compliance perspective, but just the ease of where to go to get things. It's nice that the community voter guide is also there and that it's live, so every time it's updated on either our side or the town side, those things are up to date. So that is really exciting. A few other pieces that I had been working through with teachers and the union was stuff around requesting a new club, stipends, and getting all of that information on what we call the hub, so internal Google Doc mechanism for people to have easy access to information. So that's all linked and up there now. And reviewing of job descriptions is sort of next on the list. There was a lot in these goals. So I feel pretty good about where we're all at this time of the year. It's February, so we still have plenty of time to keep working. So that feels great. The other thing that is exciting is the training and onboarding for the extension for hiring for the spring. That we're pretty close to the training process, and then we just selected a time today, actually, for the administrative team to sit and start to look at it. So it'll be our second Power School extension that we have added to that platform. So, and as a reminder, it links automatically to School Spring, so it'll just really broaden, hopefully, our applicant pool in a dwindling education market. But I think really for me, it's tough to look at an applicant and be like, oh, thank you for mailing in your paper packet, as opposed to they upload their information once and then they can apply to multiple districts, multiple positions. And it basically has the face of a mini website when you log on to that extension in Power School. It says, here we are, this is who Barrington is, and gives a nice description. So looking forward to that going live in the spring. So the stay interview packet I emailed all of you, I think was like 22 pages long. I did distill it down to a smaller one. That's the one I'm going to speak to tonight, because the other one, I also noticed that I had a sentence that was incomplete on that, so I'll fix that. I know, like mid-thought. So I will, when we post the packet, I'll get the full one there. But just to look at the overarching questions and kind of the key takeaways and summaries. First question I asked people was, well, what do you look forward to when you come to work? And overwhelmingly, the responses were about students, hooray, and colleagues. Students, colleagues, and supportive administration. Like, those were the responses that I received over and over again in that area. What do you like most about your role? So a slight difference than, why do you like to get up in the morning and come to work? There were some challenges, as you would expect, some team dynamics, some struggles implementing new strategies, but those are just areas for growth, right? We wouldn't expect things to be pristine all the time. But really, what it revealed overall is just a very passionate, dedicated workforce that appreciates collaboration, but also appreciates that, they're not micromanaged. They're allowed to go in and teach, and there's trust and respect. So that was great. What do you like least about your role? That really came down to time. And the behavioral challenges. So we talked about the task force earlier in the meeting. Those were a couple of the bigger areas. And then specific curriculum challenges. Every time a teacher has to learn a new curriculum, it's a heavy lift. It takes a couple years to really know it, own it, and feel really confident about it. So probably not a bad thing that we had to pause on ELA and give math a little bit more time and allow us to focus in on strategies instead. Maintaining a positive work-life balance. That was an interesting question. Some people still talked about COVID and sort of still coming off of that. A lot of people talked about how they themselves have to get better at their own boundaries and saying no and not overextending themselves. Some people are like, I really need to not coach a sport every season, or I have to stop signing up for too many committees. So there were definitely a few people that felt like, I just can't get it all done. I'm constantly at home, writing student plans or grading or, lesson planning. But for the most part, it was more about people owning that they need to manage their own time and draw the line, It's hard, though, when you've got emails coming in and you need to lesson plan. So that was an area that was more about lack of time than anything else. Changing something about your work environment, what would it be? I think communication, comes up in pretty much every workforce. We all communicate differently. So that's always an area that you just try to refine. And again, back to the workload, the amount of planning time, sometimes team dynamics. So some frustrations, but again, you would expect that and nothing over the top. Do you feel safe and supported at work? This question I thought would prompt a lot of conversation, and then it did the absolute opposite. People were just like, yeah. I mean, it was just a quick, yeah, of course I do. Some people went down the road of more, personal, emotional support, and some people went down the safety and security angle. And I purposely left the questions open because I just wanted people to sit and be heard and be able to share. So clearly people really appreciate their people here. I don't know what else to say that. The teams are tight. When a lot of people shared stories of, this happened with a family member and, this building just wrapped around me, So when somebody in Barrington struggles, Barrington steps up and supports their people. So that was fantastic. How do people like to be recognized for their achievements? This was answered exactly as you would expect it, with lots of squirming and I don't want to be recognized. I had a great answer that I just want to share because I've thought about it a lot since this conversation. And the response was, what do you mean? That's not my choice. And I said, tell me more about that. And this teacher responded with, well, how somebody chooses to recognize me is their choice. So I thought that was just interesting that their perception was hey, if they choose to recognize me, I don't get to dictate how I get, that pat on the back. So I just thought that was an interesting response. When talking about what people never want to see change about the district, it all came back to community, staff, and the culture. Again, people just feel, for the most part, very supported here. And, there's people who said, hey, I've had years where I didn't quite feel supported, but they did also feel like they had the opportunity to have those conversations, and, things have come back around. And then I just asked an open-ended, is there anything else that you would like to add that I didn't ask? And again, it came back to trust, and that they just felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. It's a family, I'm treated professionally. So I think for me, I didn't hear any surprises when I did these, but it was very, I don't know the right words to say. It was humbling in a way to be able to be part of this community of professionals and learners, and the fact that they trusted me enough to sit and have open conversations was pretty powerful. So I just really want to thank the staff for taking their time, as they're telling me they don't have a lot of time, right? They were giving me either before school, after school, lunch, their prep, where we really just sat down and, they felt like they could just share and not be penalized. So we did get some direct feedback with some areas for growth, for sure. And I really appreciate that. And I think some of those we have jumped on, for one example, with the language arts process. So overall, it was well worth the time and probably the busiest time of the year, but I felt it was important going into the budget process. If there was anything major that was going to come out, I wanted to know about it, so. That is enough of talking for me, and I'll.
I had a question.
Sure.
So first, I do want to thank the staff, because it is stressful being asked to give your opinions about your current employer, and then also having the trust that we're going to do something with this that will help maintain the stability of the things that they appreciate, but also move forward with the things that need improvement. So knowing how these types of employee surveys work, the validity of this data is only valid for so long, right? So do you feel that the existing, where we are at, and also the overarching 5-year plan is in line with the direction in which the staff is feeling like needs to go? Like, a lot of the comments were about just really needing, like the direct quotes, really needing more professional development, wanting to do a good job, not feeling like they have the tools to do that in the environment of education today. So do you feel like we're on the right path, or do we need to make some changes to the 5-year plan in order to help provide those supports?
I think it will be valuable, hopefully, and interesting to see what we come up with out of the behavior task force. A lot of the frustrations were like, wow, we just don't know what else to do at this point. So, and time. So I think, the teacher contract that we have put together for the voters in March has more planning time. So hopefully, those things fall into place and we can give people a little more of that, the time that they need. Really, if I were to pick one thing that came forward from almost every person that I spoke with, it was time. Even paraprofessionals, because, they don't have planning time per se, but we also know we're struggling with subs, so they're called upon a lot, and, to cover, to pitch in, to help and support, and so they feel stressed out because you walk in the door thinking you're doing one thing in the day. Students, little human beings are unpredictable enough. And when you think you're going to be doing A, B, and C and you end up doing X, Y, and Z, it can be really challenging. So, some stability in education overall would be great. Some subs, if anybody's listening that wants to sub, like that would be amazing.
Yes.
So I think, time was the biggest thing, and then addressing, nobody comes to work, thinking that, and students don't come in like, I'm going to, make my teacher's life miserable today. Everybody comes in with good intentions, and I think we do need to provide people the training, the targeted training, and the support that they need. So with the work we're doing with science of reading right now, with the behavior task force, I think we're headed in the right direction. There's always room for more. And
Math, it looked like math was a big one.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I do feel like over the years, we've brought in a lot of people to speak to literacy and literacy instruction. And while when we bought the new math program, we brought in people to train people on the program, we haven't done the same level of training on understanding basic pillars of math and how to teach that and how to understand when a student might have a gap in that.
So there's been a few teachers who have participated in OGAP training and have found it unbelievably valuable. So you make a great point, Moira, because when you adopt a new curriculum, your PD days, your training, then ends up being, how do you read and understand this teacher's manual? Not, do we all truly understand the 5 pillars of reading and what it takes to be an early reader? So I do think that we should go back and figure out how to find the time to provide some of that PD as well. There's just not as much information out there about numeracy, right? But there's quite a bit. And I think we could benefit from bringing some of that basic understanding of number to our teachers. It's fascinating. And I think there's been a lot of growth in the district. It's hard when I was a teacher for well over 20 years. It's hard when your kids aren't making progress to either sit in your team meeting or with your administrators and have a conversation about, why aren't your kids making progress? It makes you feel like you're a bad teacher. And so I think what we've done a good job at in the past year plus is we're all of different ages. We've all had different teacher training programs. We all went to different universities, and nobody needs to feel badly about a lack of understanding, training, knowledge, but let's get there. Right. And I feel like people are very open and want to all be on the same page right now. So that feels good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anything else from anybody? All right. Well, seeing as we have no select board member, we'll skip over that.
Okay.
I would assume if he was coming, he'd be here by now. He's not-
Yeah, it's later than usual.
We have correspondence.
We have a letter of resignation from Miss Sarah Rollins in our packet.
Can I get a motion to accept the resignation?
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Come on up, you can come to the table.
And thanks for letting us not get cast into darkness, Richard.
Yes, thank you for walking
Keeping the
around.
lights on.
Thought somebody was in the back room shutting the lights on.
No, we have
It's like the Oscars where they're like giving us the lights.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Back up a little bit. So just to kind of go through some of the things happening at BES, and first, enrollment has stayed pretty consistent. We certainly have had a few students who have moved out, but as it were we also would have a few students who moved in, but we have not seen any significant increase or decrease at any of our grade levels to this point. Attendance for us has continued to be a relative strength this year in comparison to years past. Maybe the last 3 weeks or so, notwithstanding, as it seems like the 2025 version of the plague is sweeping through classrooms and homes. But overall, we've seen a decrease in the number of students with excessive absences. So that has been a positive sign, and I think lends itself to just the efforts of parents and families and understanding of the importance of school, but I also think it lends itself to just the environment that we're establishing, that kids want to be at school and look forward to coming. So some of the academic things that are happening, I just want to highlight actually what first grade is doing. Last year, I was approached by one of the first grade teachers about doing a writing unit and then potentially having their work sort of displayed at the public library. And it was a great success. It was a fun activity. It was a good turnout from the parents, and incorporated going into the public library, so just sort of a good community school connection. This year, we're shifting slightly, and now all the first grade classrooms are going to participate, and the public venue will actually be on display during town voting day. So just another way to for these kids to have an opportunity to have an authentic audience for some of their academic work, but then also for even non-parents of students who will be coming in to vote, just to see some of the work that our kids are doing. So I'm just think it's great for the first grade team to take that on, and it'll be a great opportunity for their kids. Skipping down just to some of the things at the reading team, I just want to sort of note where we're at. So for us, our reading team is our reading specialist, Miss Christy Croft, who is new to us this year, and then working with her, our interventionist Keith Nice and Heather Fogg. So currently they are working with and servicing 40 students in grades 1 through 4. Christine Keith are also doing group instruction for 14 kindergartners. So really trying to help up at the ECLC with those kids who, at the earliest age, who need some of that intervention support. One of the things that we've done slightly different this year with some of our reading support is through our Title I funding, we have who we identify as Title I tutors, who are highly trained. I think technically they're hired as paraeducators, but 2 of them have taught in the classroom before. One of them is highly qualified as a paraeducator. And sometimes they do see small groups outside of, in terms of a pull-out service, but one of the things we wanted to really focus on this year was trying to have them push into the first and second grade classrooms during literacy instruction to support whole group instruction and small group instruction in the classroom. So that's just something we've been kind of focusing on this year, just as a slightly different model. I just sort of want to highlight, and as we kind of come into the last portion of the school year, we'll be continuing to sort of monitor our assessment data just to kind of see where our kids are at. From a behavior standpoint, obviously, Deanna talked a little bit about the behavior task force. There's a number of staff members from BES who will be sort of a part of that group, which I think is very important, just given the roles that they all play and the importance, that they have to our students. We continue to work on our positive pause stickers. It's interesting, I've actually had just recently a couple of different conversations with different family members who have noted that, like, for some of their some of our youngest kids, that like just a simple sticker and a recognition that it goes home and the kids talk about it at home. And so it's just been kind of neat to see that. But we also want to focus on the whole child. So we're actually, the sort of MTSSB committee is doing you can see there the picture of the hydration meter. So I see this as two things. One is just sort of the notion of healthy living and healthy choices in terms of consuming more water. But I also think there's an importance of looking at goal setting. So sort of, something as simple as just focusing on the goal of, as a school, drinking more water and allowing the kids to be part of that process to set that goal and then work to achieve it. I know that Deanna already talked a little bit about this, but one of the things that I also just want to highlight again is the work that members of our reading team, so again, Ms. Crofts, Mr. Nice, and then our Director of Operations, Ms. Conley, and Ms. Fogg as well, with regard to kind of the professional development that they're providing for teachers in the 5 pillars of reading. I can't reiterate enough how, just after the first session, the positivity coming from classroom teachers around, just feeling like it was important and impactful, and that they are learning things that they can, not only sort of keep with them as we move forward into, planning for years to come, but that they can start doing right now. So I really appreciate sort of the efforts of the folks who are working to provide the training for our staff, but also just all of our teachers for being sort of open and willing and ready to take that in. And then I just also want to note that I think at the time I wrote this, it hadn't happened yet, but we did have the Naval Shipyard had some representatives, and we had a number of parent volunteers who came in to work with every kid during their UA block, even during the delayed opening last week, to do some really cool STEAM activities with all of the kids. So there was some coding stuff, there was some robotics work, and it was just kind of a neat sort of, again, collaboration with somebody coming from outside and our UA team working together to sort of figure out logistically how to pull it off. So I think I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Rich. Any questions or comments? Can you remind me what the penny challenge is on your?
Yes, it is very competitive. So if you'll remember, this is a couple of years ago, the fundraiser that got me all the way to kissing a pig. So this is
What's happening to you this year?
nothing as embarrassing. So the different levels, which they actually, it is not, I think it is public because I think I saw it on social media. The first level was like a pajama day at school. The second level, and this is all monetary levels. The second level is like extra recess with popsicles, sort of a popsicle recess with from the PTO. The third level is Miss McQueen and I dressing up in like inflatable, like dinosaur costumes to do arrival and dismissal. And then I believe the like final one would be, if you can picture Mario Kart, but like tricycle, so a tricycle day where Miss McQueen and I have to utilize a tricycle the entire day to get around school, culminating with culminating at the end of the day with a school-wide assembly where I believe there would be like multiple staff like tricycle races. And the way it works is that each grade level and staff.
Make sure you let us know when.
have a container and like pennies like add money, but if you put silver in other people, it's like negative money and like so there's just different rules around. So like I believe that first.
Can they earn all the things? Like, can we see you in dinosaur costumes? And
Yes. So
on
each time you
tricycles?
get all the things. So yes.
Well, I hope you don't forget that any time that you're on the tricycle should definitely be a meeting day, heavy at the SAU. You go back and forth in a little pathway. That would be
Great.
fantastic. You should also
I think
be
I would have to be
asked
like
shut
more
the
of like a
gate.
knee scooter. I can't know that I could like get my knees up the pedal, but they got to get there first, right? And they have to get there first.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Yes, that was a challenge.
I think I saw an update on social media, and it was like it's already in like the couple hundreds
Yes,
already. So
yes.
they're doing great.
I believe they've raised close to already $1,000 in 2 days. So
That's amazing. Oh yeah,
We want to see you on a
looks like
tricycle.
you're
Yes.
going to be
So I
ready.
will tell you, I had a couple colleagues who, they greeted their students, like last Friday in the dinosaur costume. And they're quite warm, just so you know, plan appropriately.
Oh,
It was like a really cool day.
so, right, I was just saying, so I'll have to do that soon.
It's like a hot box.
the day he was taped to the wall was rough.
That was a sweaty day.
That was a sweaty day.
All right, so top that, Katie.
All right, I don't think I can, but
The dinosaur suit.
I wish I had a dinosaur suit. That you could be a dinosaur riding a tricycle. Anyways, so on to student services. I will say across the district, this is an area that is continues to be very, very busy. Not only identifying students, but also the level of need, the behavioral increases, the identifications that are kind of fitting in different categories have also increased. So starting with our preschool, as you can see there, it's always our busiest program, although they're only here for 2.5 hours at a time. It is a very busy, full 2.5 hours for each classroom. I want to add that the teams are working really, really hard to kind of identify and understand the complexity of our students that are arriving here in Barrington. It's not a Barrington issue. I want to kind of point out that it is across the state. I would probably argue that's across the country, that the complexity of needs have increased. So I'll say with that, the preschool team is working really hard to kind of shift and adjust and look at our schedules and look at our programming to determine kind of what do we do about that, because the same old isn't working anymore. So part of that will come out of the behavior task force, but a lot of that will come out of kind of just special ed and scheduling. So they are visiting Spectrum Connections on March 11th because we're seeing a lot of students come in with the diagnosis of autism. So they're going to kind of partner with Spectrum Connections to see what works there, what tools and tricks can they bring into our schools. So that's a great partnership. And March 11th is a PD day that they are going to do that. So it's busy. We have some work to do there, but those teachers deserve a lot of accolades because they're working hard with our littlest learners to get them to speak, walk, read, identify letters and sounds. But beyond that, we have a lot of complexities coming in our buildings. Charter school, our number of students identified have decreased. It's important to note that the number here is not the number of students we have in our charter schools. It is just the number of identified students. So that number has decreased, even with the addition of a new charter school down in New Hampshire. I anticipate that to start increasing because they are also seeing similar impacts with behavior and student with complex needs. So I actually have 2 referrals that just hit my desk last week. So I anticipate that number to start to climb a little bit, but not drastically. I think it's important that we've kind of hit this like weird, I say it's weird because families who choose to go send their children to charter schools don't have to tell the public school that they are doing that. They don't have to identify that to us. So recently I've had 2 charter schools reach out and send me bills and say, you have a student living in town that's moved into town, here's a bill, because they're an identified student and we pay for those services. So I've engaged the state because I'm not paying that bill until I have residency to prove that they live here in town. So that's been kind of a roadblock for us. But Luckily, the charter schools do understand that, and I also don't have a working MOU with them currently because they're not ones that we use regularly. So those are just a few kind of weird charter school things that we're working through. But with everything else, those are some bills that are in the House that may change the way we do things in the future. Out of district, you can see we currently have 6 students placed among a variety of schools. 2 students this year have moved in that were already placed out of district. When that happens, we have very little control over that, as it is deemed most appropriate for that student to remain there. So we continue on with that for their effective programming. Looking at our kindergarten through 8th data, you can see that our 3rd grade through 7th grade is the most highly identified currently. And K, I would say, is at 12, which is more than we normally see in kindergarten at this time, significantly more. So we usually see the number that we see in 1st grade in kindergarten. So that's something to kind of pay attention to and kind of watch as we go to see what happens with that class. It is a lower number of students in that class overall, but the number of identified has climbed. And I know that there's a couple that are kind of on watch there as well. So typically we've hovered around the 18 to 20% identified. We are currently at the higher end of 20% identified. I anticipate that increasing before the end of the year. We're kind of in the middle. This is when some of our referrals come in and we determine if students are eligible or not for the end of the year. High school data. The Dover number is generally shocking, but it's because the majority of our students that are identified, the majority of our students that are identified do end up going to Dover for a variety of reasons. They find a lot of success with their programming and the level of classes that they are able to offer students so that there's some variety in their ability to learn. So we see a lot of success with our identified students at Dover High School. Oyster River has remained somewhat stable. We next year are anticipating more students in 9th grade going to Oyster River that are identified than we have seen typically. So that will be kind of fun to watch and be part of because that's a change. Co-Brown remains stable. I don't know the final number of students that have signed up to go to Co-Brown for next year that are identified, but the kind of word on the street is it's 1 or 2, so that number should remain low, which from a budgetary standpoint is a good thing.
Sorry, can you remind me, what's the additional cost when the student's identified?
It's 8, right?
Just under 8,000.
8,000 per student.
7840. It's just under $8,000.
And then with anything else, we do currently have 6 students that are attending high school until the age of 22. They can age out on their 22nd birthday, no day later. So you can see there our percentages. Total number of identified in high school is 21%, which we've kind of hovered around that number historically. We don't usually see new identifications in high school, so I don't really see that number shifting. It's kind of rare that we see a new identification, but if we get a move-in or something drastically changes, I'll report that at the end. So total, without pre-K and without our out-of-district placements, we are at 20%. We have 275 students identified currently. With our out-of-districts, we have 281 identified, which is a 1% increase over the end of last year. Other updates, free and reduced, we have a 10.8% of our population that is identified. It is a decrease from last year, even though we have continued to kind of send out the information for free and reduced a variety of ways and continue to do that throughout the year instead of that one time middle of the year and end of the year. So hopefully that means that that's a good thing for our community, that they're not as in high need for free and reduced meals. ESOL has been something that the district has been watching for quite some time because our numbers were increasing, certainly not to the level of other districts across the state. However, the amount that we were paying to service this small population of students was continuing to climb. I'm happy to report that it has kind of leveled out and we haven't had any additional students with this need. The testing window for ESOL testing is coming up, and they'll determine how many units students require for their ESOL services, and if students still qualify for ESOL services, or if they are going to be kind of like on watch or discharged.
Can I ask a quick question about that? I'm happy to hear that the numbers are stable, but what would be, in your opinion, like, not scientifically, but just like, where would the threshold be where we would start? Like, how many more students would we need to see for that to maybe be another concern?
Yeah, so I think it would be, so right now, I would have to double check it, but we're paying Stratford Learning about $67,000, right? So it's not really a full, if you look at a contracted position versus a full-time employee position with benefits, it's not really a full-time person yet if you include the benefits, right? Because we were talked, a teacher is about 130, right? 110, 130. So it's not quite there. I would say last year we were talking, because I was concerned it was going to be around 80, 90, right? But where it's remained stable, I would say we should stay the course, right?
Okay.
Finding a part-time ESOL person would be challenging.
Yeah.
But if it continues to climb, I would come to you guys and say, should we consider this, right? So that way we also own the staff member and we're not paying someone else those
It's such a
salaries.
variable number, it's hard.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
exactly. It's such a moving target.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Current hiring, you can see there, we have paraprofessional positions open. The speech language assistant position remains open. We've partnered with UNH to kind of continue to pump that out to their speech department. With little success yet, but maybe at the end of the year for next year, we might have some success. McKinney-Vento, historically, we've only discussed this from a K-8 perspective. But I will say we have a large number of high schoolers that are identified as McKinney-Vento. Kind of the trend is we're seeing what's considered unaccompanied youth, which doesn't necessarily mean that their family's not engaged in their learning or their life, just that they are not living under the same roof as their parent for a variety of reasons. So we are seeing that in our high school population kind of grow, so I thought it was important to include that. We are at a 1% for our K-12 population, which is an increase from a K-8. We are cost sharing with 3 other districts right now to transport students in and out of Barrington to continue their education where they were prior to becoming qualified for McKinney-Vento. We're really fortunate because it's not only part of the law, right, but also everybody's just kind of like, let's just do what's right for kids, and we'll cost share, and we get when we send out for it, we get the check pretty quickly. We're not begging for it, we're not asking for it. They send it, so that's nice. Pathways, which was the former SNAPS, has been the kind of like rebranding has been really successful. They've been able to do a lot with students now that we have the van back in use. Life skills is starting to take place again, and they are thrilled. Parents are thrilled that have kids in that program, so that's really exciting. We've introduced music therapy. We've always had it, no, I shouldn't say always, but historically we've had it for our Dover High students in the life skills program, so we were able to provide it to our students in our Pathways programs within our own buildings as well, and it's really fun to watch. If you ever want to put a smile on your face, go see adaptive music with our Pathways kids. It's pretty cool to see them engage. Summer programming, believe it or not, is underway for planning. I begrudgingly was like, okay, we got to put out dates and we got to put out times and we have to do this. So we're actually pretty far ahead. We've asked people who would like to teach this year. We have quite a few people that are interested. The dates are, for people listening, July 7th to July 31st. It is the 4-day week, Monday through Thursday again. Last year, we kind of switched to what we were doing a little bit. We were providing more targeted reading instruction for students with more significant reading disabilities, and that was really successful. So I'm hoping to continue to kind of accommodate those needs this summer and perhaps expanding that to math. Funding, if you are not living under a rock, you have heard many kind of scenarios of what funding will look like for public education. It is something that we think about regularly in Barrington. It's something we talk about regularly. Around 3 a.m., yeah. Usually between 1 and 3.
Pending dread
Yeah.
washes over you.
Yeah. Last week in the newsletter, there was quite a bit of information about the current state of affairs of funding in New Hampshire and also kind of what's anticipated to come. We don't really know, right? So I think it's important to remember that we don't know. We can speculate, we can anticipate, we can do all of that, but until we actually know, I don't think we can do anything about it, right? So right now, we haven't seen a major impact in our funding here, but I would anticipate that in the future, and we'll just kind of manage it as it comes. Lastly, not in the packet, but I just wanted to extend a thank you again to allowing us to have a 60% RN added to the district. It has made my job 1,000 times easier. But not only that, we haven't had any students that haven't been able to attend school. We've only had one hiccup this year, and that really feels good, right? We haven't had to say, your child can't be safe at school. And the RN we hired is amazing. She's really flexible and has worked really well with our other RNs. So thank you for that. That's been beneficial to all students. It's not a tricycle, but it is pretty awesome.
Handy, well,
Yeah, that is pretty awesome.
easy to be up hitting him in the chin, I think. Any other questions or comments for Katie?
Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. All right, so policies.
There's a lot of them, but it's not as bad as it looks. So there's like 3 packets, so I'll walk us through the chunks. So the first few are recommended policies to rescind, and it's because the content lives in other policies. So as part of the policy committee has been very focused and diligent for a couple of years, not only trying to bring sort of up to date the ones that are way out of date and looking at them folder by folder, but also trying to get some consistency with call numbers. When we engage, say, Drummond and Woodsum to do Title IX policies, they may have call numbers that differ from NHSBA, and it just gets wildly confusing. So we are committed to, we engage with and pay our dues to NHSBA, and they have a savvy legal team, and we should capitalize on that. So the ones to recommend to rescind, BEDGR, because it now sits in EHR. EBC now is part of EBCA. ILDA is part of ILD. JLCCA is actually GBEBB.
And say that again.
I don't think so, no. And then JLI, dually coded as EB, is now just EB. So, wait, let me make sure I don't have another one. Yep, and KED is now ACA.
Yeah, so let's just do that as a trump.
That's what I was hoping for. Yes.
I'll make a motion to rescind all of those. Do I have to say them all? BEDG-R, EBC, ILDA, JLCCA, JLI, and KED.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thankfully, we also listed them on the bottom of the agenda that way, so it makes it a little bit easier. So the next chunk, policies to adopt. So part of that review, when NHSBA puts out their little updates every so often of, hey, take a look, make sure you have these. So this is a whole chunk of policies that are required that we don't have. So it's not a matter of amending, adjusting what we have. It was a matter of looking at the content within the proposed through NHSBA. The committee reviewed them, make sure that we all felt like they were appropriate and for Barrington and made sense, and so we went through that. So I don't think you need me to read those off to you.
Can I have a question though, like, and I apologize, but I'm a little anal, but like in our policy binder, are all the policies like in the same font and format? Because like these are obviously different from what we just received.
So once they go through second read, then Chris has a template so that they're consistent. That is also one of our undertakings, because there are some that are old and they look like dot matrix printers. Like, yeah, there are some
Clearly
that.
scanned in there.
Yeah.
It's just, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So that is another one of the goals, is to get them all formatted. There are just so many. By the time you get through one folder, they've changed again. It's a constant battle. But there is a template, yes.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve for first read, yes, policies ACF, ACN, GB, GBA, EH-R.
Second.
Any discussion? Is it -R1?
Dash R1, yep.
Parentheses 1.
And parentheses, yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So here's where it gets a little more complicated. I'm going to have to go back and forth from my notes to the packet. Carrie, feel free to help.
These are like burned in my memory.
ACR2 is the first to amend or update, whichever wording we want to use there. So it appears, yeah, so we did not have, if you look in your packet, all the red, we did not have all of those, all that contact information included in ours. So when we looked at NHSBA's, you're like, oh, okay, interesting. We don't have any of the required outside agencies or anybody listed.
So actually, all of these were ones that were priority or required by law that NHSBA made updates to that we just needed to catch up on.
Yep.
So a lot of this is more, it's like facelifting, it's just making sure that we're compliant. There weren't heavy changes to the verbiage in any way because these are so serious and very restrictive.
Right.
So just keeping that in mind for the latter.
So ACR2 was when we're looking at, we didn't have any of the references or the contact information or the agencies listed. And then ADC, you can see the in red pieces that were added throughout that policy that we did not have. So like Carrie just said, there weren't like major changes. They were little additions or like on the federal grant one that DAF that we'll look at later, they actually made an error and didn't update the allowable amount from 5,000 to 10,000. So there's just these little insertions and edits as you go through that we just needed to get ours up to speed.
Can I ask, just because I've not seen this before, like why there are 3 different policies of?
We ran into a couple that were tri-coded this time as opposed to 2. There were 2 different ones that I was like, wow, I've never seen that before. So yeah, they sit in 3 different folders. Do I have a good explanation for that? Not really. I mean, the simple one is like yeah, sometimes, you know, you see duly coded ones if it's like in the, you know, instruction section, but it also has to do with staff, and you'll see it in the Gs, you know, something like that.
I just hadn't seen the 3 together.
I had not either. That was new.
And it was recommended to keep.
J are students, right? So I think it's maybe because of the multiple roles, it covers
Yep.
employees and students.
And I can't believe we have a policy DIE.
Yeah, I know. I know.
That's my favorite one.
I couldn't believe it
The
either.
die policy.
Die policy, yep.
Okay.
I'm trying to think, look and see if there's any other substantive ones I want to point out in these.
How often do you swap auditors? Does the district swap auditors?
How often do we what?
Swap auditors?
Oh, gosh. I mean, we've used the same one as long as I have been here. The federal grant one, I already spoke to, that was literally a one number change. That was actually an NHSBA error from earlier, that the allowable amount before you had to go out to bid was changed, and so they just changed 5,000 to 10,000. And then audits.
Audits was just the category.
Oh, and audits was just, yeah, going from required by law from recommended to required. So this packet, although it looks huge, they were just minor additions and edits.
I'll make a motion to approve the following policies for first read. Amended policies AC-R2, ADC, ADB, GBEC, DAF, and DIE.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will find out, though, Rick, the auditor question for you.
I make a,
I think that
Hold on a second, because it's weird that we have public comment after
Oh, yeah.
public. Shouldn't public comment be before?
Yes, that
Yeah.
should be.
Sorry, we should have caught that. All right, folks, so there's no one in public here. Anyone online? We're just going to do public comment before we go into non-public, because that is actually logical, and we can be that once in a while.
we won't make you all sit there while we have,
the reason I asked the town, I think, is check with Alana, but I think the town swaps it.
Kiss they're done.
All right, yeah, I'll ask Vicki.
All right, I don't see anybody. All right, now,
all right, I make a motion to enter non-public citing RSA 91-A:3, 2C.
Second.
okay, any discussion? All right, roll call vote. I'm going to start with you, Jason.
Jason Baker, aye.
Laura Taylor, aye.
Carrie Neal, aye.
Rick Walker, aye.
All right, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Rick.